As the Landon family drove through the snow-covered forest, the world outside seemed like a painting. Endless stretches of white punctuated by towering evergreens. The Frostwood Lodge appeared like a dream amidst the snow, its rustic charm promising warmth and seclusion. Yet as they stepped out of their car, an uncanny silence blanketed the area, broken only by the faint whistle of wind through the trees. It felt too quiet. Harper, the youngest, clung to her mother's hand and whispered, "It feels like someone's watching us." The lodge was more spacious than the family expected. The crackling fireplace and the scent of cedarwood lent an inviting atmosphere, but subtle oddities caught their attention. The intricate carvings etched into the wooden walls seemed to twist and turn under the flickering firelight. An old journal lay forgotten on the bookshelf, its pages filled with fragmented thoughts about loneliness and betrayal. Over the next few days, the family settled in, their routines filled with sledding, board games, and hot cocoa. Yet, unease began to creep in. Harper spoke of hearing whispers at night, while her father, James, dismissed the flickering lights as power issues caused by the storm. One evening, Amelia, the mother, noticed the carvings seemed to have shifted slightly. What started as abstract shapes now resembled contorted faces frozen in anguish. When a fierce blizzard struck, their isolation became absolute. The power flickered and died, plunging the lodge into darkness. By candlelight, they discovered that the journal's once faded ink had become bold, with chilling new entries appearing overnight. The messages warned of turning against one another, feeding a growing sense of paranoia. The carvings now depicted violent scenes of people attacking each other, and their whispers grew louder, echoing through the lodge. Tensions flared as the family began to argue over small things. Harper's pleas about a shadowy figure moving in the halls were met with frustration rather than comfort. In a harrowing moment, Amelia stumbled upon a hidden room behind a loose panel in the wall. Inside were skeletal remains of a previous family who had turned on each other during a snowstorm, their story eerily similar to their own. The carvings on the walls had been etched by them, each stroke an outlet for their despair. The malevolent force feeding off their misery revealed itself as a spectral entity, weaving through the shadows and preying on their fears. With mounting dread, the Landons realized they had to resist the growing animosity between them. As the entity tried to manipulate their thoughts, they held hands and recited memories of love and unity, forcing the spirit to retreat. Its anguished screams faded as the carvings returned to their abstract forms. The storm abated the next morning and sunlight broke through the frosted windows. The family packed their belongings hurriedly, leaving the lodge behind. The once menacing carvings now seemed dormant, as though the spirit had been subdued. For now. As they drove away, Harper glanced back and murmured, "It's not done with us." The snow crunched beneath their boots as the group of 5 friends ascended the trail to Black Hollow Pass. The wind carried a biting chill, and the setting sun painted the snow in hues of orange and pink. As they approached the old cabin nestled deep in the wilderness, a distant howl broke the serene silence. It didn't sound like any animal they'd ever heard. The group exchanged uneasy glances but pressed on. The cabin was eerily pristine despite its age, with a fire already smoldering in the hearth and a table set as though awaiting their arrival. Olivia, the group leader, dismissed it as coincidence, but doubts lingered. They settled in, telling stories and laughing, though the oppressive quiet of the forest seemed to creep closer with each passing hour. Strange details emerged, footprints in the snow that didn't match their own, a faint tapping sound on the windows, and the unnerving discovery of personal items that seemed to belong to them, though none of them had brought them. When the snowstorm hit, the friends found themselves trapped. The tapping grew louder, escalating into desperate banging. Shadows moved outside the frosted windows, and ghostly voices called out, mimicking their own cries for help. A journal left in the cabin revealed the horrifying truth. The spirits of past travelers who had died in the storm now haunted the pass, luring others to share their fate. As the night deepened, the friends' paranoia intensified. Accusations and fear fractured their once tight bonds. The apparitions grew bolder, appearing as twisted reflections of themselves, taunting them. One by one, the friends were confronted by their worst fears, spectral illusions meant to break their will. Olivia, however, realized the key to survival was unity. She rallied her friends, urging them to hold hands and focus on their shared memories. The apparitions shrieked and dissipated, unable to break their bond. By morning, the storm had passed. Weary but alive, the friends left the cabin, vowing never to return. The forest felt lighter, as though the spirits had been temporarily appeased. When a ranger later inspected the cabin, they found it untouched, with no sign of the group's presence. Dr. Elena Torres peered through the frost-covered window of the research station, her breath fogging the glass. The endless expanse of ice seemed alive, creaking and groaning as the wind howled. Today, her team would drill deeper into the glacier than anyone had before. Beneath the surface lay secrets frozen for millennia. The station was a marvel of technology, but its isolation made it unnerving. Elena and her small team worked tirelessly, uncovering fragments of ancient ice cores. The discovery of an anomalous specimen, a humanoid figure encased in pristine ice, sparked both excitement and unease, with elongated limbs and hauntingly hollow eyes. As the team thawed the specimen for study, strange occurrences began. Equipment malfunctioned, shadows seemed to linger where no one stood, and a palpable sense of dread filled the air. Elena dismissed it as exhaustion, until the figure's fingers twitched. The team's unease turned to terror as the thawed creature began to move. It wasn't alive in the traditional sense, but seemed animated by an ancient, malevolent force. It communicated through visions, showing them a civilization buried beneath the ice, a once thriving society consumed by darkness. The creature began preying on the team, absorbing their memories and knowledge. Paranoia set in as they turned on each other, unsure who was still themselves and who had been taken by the entity. Well, Elena realized the creature could be contained by freezing it again. Using the station's emergency cooling system, she lured it into the coldest chamber. With frost biting her skin and the creature's screams echoing in her mind, she sealed it in ice once more. The survivors abandoned the station, their ordeal etched into their faces. The research was left behind, buried under layers of snow and secrecy. As the station's lights flickered out, a faint crack sounded from the frozen chamber. The small town of Winter's Peak was famous for its December festivals, drawing visitors to its snow-draped streets and quaint holiday markets. But this year, the celebrations were muted. A storm loomed on the horizon, and whispers of a cursed song that echoed through the mountains kept the townsfolk indoors. As the first snowflakes fell, Emma, a journalist chasing a story, found herself alone at the edge of town, drawn to the haunting melody. Emma was skeptical of the town's superstition about the silent choir, an eerie tune said to lure people into the storm. The locals claimed the song was the wail of spirits, victims of an avalanche centuries ago. Determined to uncover the truth, Emma ventured into the mountains, armed with a recorder and her resolve. The snowstorm intensified as she climbed, and the melody grew louder, carrying a sorrowful beauty that made her chest ache. She stumbled upon an abandoned chapel buried in snow, its doors barely visible. Inside, she found frozen figures in mid-prayer, their faces twisted in terror. The melody seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Emma's recorder malfunctioned, capturing only static. The storm raged outside, trapping her in the chapel as the frozen figures seemed to shift under her gaze. Whispers joined the song, forming a chilling harmony that spoke directly to her thoughts. She began to see visions of the avalanche, the townsfolk who had perished, and their grief-stricken souls tethered to the mountain. Their voices begged for release, yet their presence turned hostile when Emma tried to leave. Emma realized the melody was a plea for remembrance, not vengeance. She played a hymn on the chapel's broken organ, her trembling hands striking a counterpoint to the spectral song. The harmony shifted, the figures stilled, and the storm began to abate. The spirits' sorrowful faces softened as they faded into the snow. Emma returned to the town shaken but alive, with a story of both terror and redemption. The storm passed, leaving the mountains eerily quiet, and the townsfolk cautiously resumed their lives. As Emma wrote her article, she heard the melody faintly on the wind, a lingering echo of winter's peak. A team of urban explorers braved the December snowstorm to document the long-abandoned, frost-bitten asylum. Hidden deep in the mountains, the asylum's dark history of cruel experiments and unexplained disappearances made it an irresistible target for their channel. As they approached the crumbling building, the snow seemed to muffle even their own footsteps, and a faint, sobbing sound carried on the wind. The group consisted of Sarah, the fearless leader, Nate, the skeptic, and Lily, the tech expert. The asylum's towering silhouette loomed over them, its windows shattered like jagged teeth. Inside, the air was colder than outside, and the graffiti-covered walls told stories of past visitors who had left in a hurry. As they explored, they found disturbing remnants, rusted restraints, faded patient records, and a series of unmarked graves buried under the snow outside. Lily's equipment picked up strange electromagnetic readings, and Sarah's camera captured fleeting shadows that weren't there when she looked up. The storm intensified, and the explorers found themselves trapped. Doors slammed shut on their own, and whispers filled the air, speaking in fragmented sentences that seemed to mock their fears. Nate disappeared, his flashlight abandoned in a pool of melted snow, and the group's cohesion unraveled. Sarah and Lily discovered a hidden basement filled with patient cells. Scratched into the walls were pleas for help and cryptic warnings. Don't trust the light. They realized the asylum's staff had conducted cruel experiments in isolation, and the spirits of the patients were exacting their revenge. The spirits took on grotesque forms, their hollow eyes reflecting the storm outside. Sarah confronted them, offering apologies and vowing to tell their story. The spirits relented, their forms dissolving into snowflakes. The storm calmed, and Nate reappeared, unharmed but visibly shaken, as if waking from a nightmare. The trio escaped the asylum, their footage corrupted but their memories intact. They left the mountain, vowing never to return. Months later, Sarah received an anonymous package containing an unmarked VHS tape labeled simply, "Watch Me."